Diana Durdin has been on a spiritual sojourn since the day she was born. Her every thought, every decision, every action, every song, every step, all in divine order. Family, sit back and enjoy the testimony of Reverend Diana Durdin.
Reverend Diana Durdin. It is wonderful to see you again after years.
Uh-huh, those many years. Uh-huh.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And this is truly a blessing. 'Cause I've been looking forward to having this conversation for more than a couple minutes. So
Wow.
just thank you. And I'm gonna jump right into this, my friend. Tell me a little bit about not just Diana, but tell me about the family, the people who made you you.
Whew. Reverend Diana Durden here. Good to see you. Good to have my face in the place. Truly humbled and honored to be invited to the table. And let's eat. Let's
That's
eat
right.
well. So I am the number two child of Reverend um, Janet Lenore Swift
Mm.
and Fred Lewis Durden Jr., both who are passed on. God rest their in peace and God rest their souls. But I'm their number two child, and the only girl. I'm the only girl. Born November 20th, 1958 at 11:56 p.m.
Mm.
And every year, my mother called me on my birthday, and as a youngster, she would tell me I only had 4 minutes of birthday. She said, "What do you want to do for your birthday this year?" And I'd say, "I want this party and that, and I want to go here and I want to go there." And she goes, "You can do all that in 4 minutes?" I'm just like, "What?" She goes, "Hey, at midnight, you don't have a birthday anymore." So when you're born at 11:56, you get teased all your life about it. But
Oh.
yeah, but so I'm what they call a moon baby because of course on the 24th, well, I think they've changed it now, but anyway, I am the number two. I am the number two daughter, and the only girl of my parents. And my mother is I am a second generation pastor. My mother was amazing. My aunt introduced my mother to Jesus late in life. They grew up in the AME Zion Church, but my
and
mother, of
and
course,
where were they? What part of the country or what part of the world?
Cleveland, Ohio,
Okay.
or Conneaut and Cleveland and
Hmm.
Erie, Pennsylvania. So they were in that little core group right there,
Hmm.
and yeah, and they were my mother's parents, my grandmother and grandfather, Ben and Isabel, um, or Susan Isabel. My mother's parents died when my mother was 14, and then her father died when she was 16. So she was raised by one of her sisters, and that sister, Ethel Jane, was definitely a Bible thumper back in the day. And we used to
Hmm.
be like, "Man, we got to go to church. We always got to go to church." And I didn't have a problem with it because I was introduced to God by my friends. But anyway, I can go a thousand different this way. I can vein out so many ways as how we came to Jesus. But my mother was reintroduced, and we were members of Payne Chapel in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Um, and we lived in a little suburb called Security, Colorado, which is
Hmm.
now
Hmm.
incorporated into Colorado Springs.
Hmm.
But from there, my mother just launched into the church, and in we later moved to Denver, where we attended Shorter AME Church,
Hmm. Hmm.
and on the corner of Martin Luther King, Colorado Boulevard, right there,
Yep.
right now. And so that's when my mother's ministry took off, and she pastored in, of all places, Salt Lake City, Utah.
Hmm.
for about 7 years. And then she completed her ministry, or then she came to Kansas City, Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
From there to La Jolla, California. And from there, believe it or not, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Now, how'd she get from Cleveland to Colorado Springs?
She actually, when her mother died, my aunt took her and the two youngest. My mother
Mm-hmm.
is number 9, 10, 11, 9 of 11 children.
Mm-hmm.
And so they went to California.
Mm.
And then from California, my mom married my dad and they moved to military. Spent the
Mm.
first 4.5 years of my life in Paris, France. Came back to California, San Bernardino. And from San Bernardino, we went to Colorado Springs. My dad, well, Security, Colorado, and
Mm-hmm.
my dad was at Ent Air Force Base. He was an airline or jet mechanic,
Mm-hmm.
and retired from the Air Force after 21 years, and went into the Army, where he was in Enterprise, Alabama, and he was a helicopter pilot instructor. So we have crisscrossed this nation, and it was pretty cool.
Your
Pretty
father might
cool.
have known mine because my father was stationed at Ent around the same time y'all were there.
Probably.
And
And
Ent wasn't
I'm
but so
telling you,
big.
yeah, I was gonna say, and well, look, wasn't a whole bunch of us,
Yeah.
okay?
Well. Mm-hmm.
And in those positions,
Mm-hmm.
we were
Mm-hmm.
mostly soldiers and that kind of thing. And my dad did do, his jaunt in the Gulf War as well as
Mm-hmm.
Vietnam, And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, they probably did know each other. And I'm thinking how small the world is when you get to talking to folks and who was where when, and you
Mm-hmm.
just kind of go, "Hey, Michael, we might have known each other back then."
Mm-hmm. You
And
know,
didn't know we knew each other back then,
yeah. There's
you
so many
know?
people, especially our generation,
Yeah,
that had military backgrounds.
exactly.
We were all somehow just ended up, our fathers were stationed in Colorado, and that's sort of how it happened.
Right, right.
But there was one sister who was born on the same military base I was born in. We graduated from the same high school, and we both graduated from CU.
Okay. What high
Uh,
school did you go to in Colorado Springs?
Mitchell.
Well, yeah, we knew each other.
Yeah.
'Cause my boyfriend went to Mitchell High School.
Yeah, see, I bet you we knew each other even before
I'm
Boulder.
telling you, he
You
was on.
know?
Look, he was on the track team.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, then he was in a band, and yeah, so yes, and so even though I was in security and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was a pom pom girl, and
Mm-hmm.
at Widefield High School.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, so yeah,
So
I'm telling you that it just
we
keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I think we talked about that in college as well, but I
mm-hmm.
think we kind of did this and stuff, walking and going in different circles and stuff. But isn't that amazing? Isn't
It's
that amazing? We think
the
this
work.
world is so big, and then when you get to talking to folks, we realize how small it really is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
I am a military baby. And that's how I ended up in Colorado, matriculated through the whole Colorado Springs,
Mm-hmm.
school district and stuff, Widefield Elementary, Watson. It was called junior high school back then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Watson Junior High School. And then I graduated from Widefield in 1976. I was a 76 graduate, started at CU Boulder in the summer of 1977.
Now, talk about well, a couple of things. I'm gonna go back a little bit. Talk about growing up in the Springs. Um, it clearly has a military sort of presence because there are a whole lot of folks, black, white, whoever, who somehow, for some reason, settled there.
Yeah.
And you got the Air Force Academy, you've got Cheyenne Mountain, you have Ant, you got Peterson Field. There's
Mhm.
all of that stuff. What was that world like for you as a child?
It was it was different and difficult. In that the issue, ironically, was not in my high school per se,
Mm-hmm.
but in my Black community,
Hmm.
because we had Harrison and Palmer and high schools and stuff. And Mitchell High School was kind of diverse. I mean, that was kind of the closest we were going to get to a diverse.
Mm-hmm.
But, as you know, Harrison High School was a predominantly Black high school. Palmer
Mm-hmm.
was predominantly Black high school.
Mm-hmm.
Coronado, all those other high schools and stuff were mostly white high schools. We
Mm-hmm.
were a very diverse, because we were in Security, Colorado, which was right outside of Fort Carson Army Base. So
Mm-hmm.
we had a lot of military families. We were the suburbs.
Yep.
Colorado Springs was like 20 miles from Security up
Mm-hmm.
Hancock on Hancock Expressway.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
But so we didn't have the issues that uh, that other high schools and the Colorado Springs community had.
Mm-hmm.
I felt very isolated. We were the only Black family on my block.
Mm.
There were other Black families in the community, but we were definitely the minorities, but we were so integrated into the diversity of our high school. And so we didn't have the blatant racism and the racist issues and stuff that they had at Harrison. We had A1 education.
Mm-hmm.
Harrison High School, Palmer, they had issues in those high schools.
Mm-hmm.
They had a lot of things that were happening there that we didn't.
Yep.
So my mother was actually a counselor in and the head of the teen center,
Mm.
okay,
Okay. Yeah.
In Colorado Springs.
Right.
And yeah, and she was actually the first Black and female employee on the Colorado Springs upper echelon level, as
Mm-hmm.
far as government goes. And so she went from the teen center to being the director of a teen program,
Mm-hmm.
and making six figures a year, which was
Mm.
unheard of back in
Oh.
the 70s,
Oh yeah.
mid to late 60s, early 70s, even into the 70s and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Unheard of. But the young people, the Black people, the young Black children, or if you will, of the Palmers and the Mitchells and the Harrisons and Harrison High School and Cheyenne Mountain, yeah, they didn't even bother. Those That was the rich area. That was the
Mm-hmm.
Cherry Creek, if you will, when
Yeah.
we know
Mm-hmm.
about Denver,
Yep.
Colorado. That was
Mm-hmm.
the Cherry Hills and the Cherry Creek, and wherever your ritzy areas are in
Mm-hmm.
your cities now.
Yep.
That was Cheyenne Mountain.
Yep. Yep.
That was Cheyenne Mountain. And we had a couple of folks at CU Boulder that came from that area. Anyway, so it was so growing up, I didn't have those issues. I didn't experience some of the things, but I was also very much ostracized because um, I didn't have those issues. I would go to Harrison High School, pom pom, cheering and stuff like that for the
Mm-hmm.
games.
Mm-hmm.
And we were rushed out even before the game was over.
Mm.
And the cheerleaders and the pom pom girls, we all had to get on the bus and we left before the game was over, because the chant was, we might not win the game, but we're going to win the fight. And I'm just like this.
Yep.
I was called out, I was called names and that type of thing. So it was an interesting time to grow up. Um, Even though I knew it existed, I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't I wasn't a direct target. Does
Right.
that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it's so interesting. Our parents did the best they could to insulate us from a lot of that stuff.
Absolutely.
Because there are
Absolutely.
things that even though I saw things in the Deep South and other places, it didn't register until later what I'd actually seen and lived through, and
Mhm,
what the impact that would have later in my life. So no, I totally get that.
mhm.
Now,
I remember when Kennedy died and
hmm
was assassinated and stuff. And my mother just sat in front of the TV and she wept. And I wept
hmm
with her. I didn't know why then.
hmm
I know now.
yeah, it's in fact, it's funny. You were there. We were there during the era of the Black Klansman. I didn't realize that till I saw the movie and looked up the history. But when all that was going on, you were there.
Mhm,
You know,
mhm.
because when Stokely, there's a scene where Stokely comes down to Colorado Springs and speaks to
Oh, yes.
CC.
Yes.
And in Spike's movie, it happened in early '72, but no, it happened in '77, and I know
Yeah.
this because a friend of mine brought him to Boulder and then drove him down there.
Yes.
You know, it,
And I did not secretly know my mother was a Black Panther. So I
seriously
met Stokely Carmichael.
nice.
Stokely Carmichael was in, I met him. He was in our house.
Oh my goodness.
There were things that that my mother would go to Colorado Springs
Mm-hmm.
and then she would come back to her suburban
Mm-hmm.
community.
Mm.
I can remember there was a protest, and I don't know if you remember this when the black man was killed at the by the white gas station owner,
Yes.
um,
Yes.
and gas was 32. Was it 32 cents a gallon, or might have been 80 cents a gallon, and
Mm-hmm.
cigarettes were 32 cents a pack. Anyway, um, but it was like change. It was coins, and
Yeah.
we'll just say gas was 84 cents a gallon.
Mm-hmm.
And we lined up, and I can remember sitting in the car and the protest, the very silent but very, very loud protest was the Black community came together. And we lined up and that was full service gas station. So they checked
Mm-hmm.
your tires, they could check your oil, they washed all your front windshield, your back windshield and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And we just lined up around the block. And every time a car pulled out, we paid in pennies
Mm-hmm.
and we bought a gallon of gas
Mm.
and we paid in pennies. And we wanted all the tires checked. We wanted the windshields washed. We wanted the back, the back and the front windshields washed and stuff. And they made no money.
Mm.
And we kept that gas station full and
Mm-hmm.
every pump was full until they finally went, that's enough. That is enough. And we closed down that gas station
There you go.
because the man who shot him, innocent young man, Black man,
Mm-hmm.
and the city of Colorado Springs did nothing about it. And that man walked free. And we were just like, not a problem. Because back then they said, and our ancestors, our legacies said, the the only way to make a difference is to hit them in the pocket. Oh, we could have
Mm-hmm.
protested and stood outside with signs and all the rest of that
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff. Didn't do it. Didn't do it because of the threat of arrest and
Mm-hmm.
dogs and that kind of thing. You just kind
Mm-hmm.
of go, oh. But we were peacefully at the gas station getting gas.
Mm-hmm.
And could you check my oil? They had to lift the hood on those, those were steel cars back in the.
Mm, so heavy.
That was a struggle to get those hoods up and stuff. And yeah, and we kept the gas station busy. We kept it, and again, and you're paying in pennies.
Mm-hmm. So y'all learned the lessons from Montgomery,
Yes,
you know?
yes, yes. So
And
yeah, it was a different time for me, but there was also a separation for me as well
mm-hmm.
because I did go back to our 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 2 car garage,
Mm-hmm.
front yard, beautifully groomed front yard, backyard, suburban community
Mm-hmm.
where I went to school and sang Kumbaya with my white friends and my Asian friends and my Indian friends. I don't think we had very many Native American Indians back, back in those times and stuff, but because they weren't in the armed forces or anything, but
Mm.
these were my military friends, and I might have them for my elementary, fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, and then their dad gets shipped out,
Yeah.
and then I didn't see them anymore. But that the cycle of friends, we had core friends, and then when they got sent out, they got sent out.
Yeah. Yeah. So I almost feel like there's more I want to ask you, but I'm going to say this. How Boulder? Why Boulder of all places?
Boulder had what I always wanted to be a buffalo. CU Boulder was my second choice to
Mhm.
and being totally transparent. CU
Mhm.
Boulder was actually my second choice. I wanted to go. My first choice was Fitz.
Mhm.
I wanted to go to an HBCU. And my mother was a single parent by then.
Mhm.
And not too long after we, did get to Security, Colorado and stuff. And um, my mother, I think she just was afraid of me going away from home.
Mhm.
And so I thought, okay, well, but I got to get away from here. So so I applied to, and I really thought that black and gold just stuck out to me, and I wanted to go to CU Boulder. And at first it was like, oh, well, you can go down to Pueblo, and I was just like, I don't think so. I don't want to go down there. So then my first choice, after I could not. In fact, I was laughing. I just ran across my SATs and my, college acceptance and all
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. And CU Boulder was my second choice.
How about that?
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
that was my second choice. If I can't go out of state to an HBCU, then I'll stay in state. But I just wanted to go as far as Boulder, and that felt like a million miles away when you're in Security, Colorado.
What about that? Tell me about that first day. Coming over at 36. Everybody always talks about 36 and coming over that hill. What was your first day like?
Um, I felt like it was a separate world. It was a separate world. You come over that hill and you just, I mean, the view is just like, whoa, and the red rocks and the greenery of the mountains, but the and you just kind of go, oh, wow, that is beautiful. But I felt like I was descending into a different part of Colorado, if you will. And
Hmm.
I was like, are you sure? And kind of a thing. You're leaving a whole bunch of stuff behind, but you are a city within a city.
Hmm.
And I felt like I was in a city, um, beyond a city. I was blessed in that I was also coming in the summertime. So the trick was there wasn't a lot of traffic, and so I could actually appreciate the beauty that was around me. And then and it was just like this open arm that just kind of welcomed me in, and I felt safe there. And I think that's because um Hancock Expressway coming
Hmm.
into Security, Colorado was the same way.
Hmm.
You come in on a main street and then it veins out into all these different things. So for Security, Colorado, that same thing. You have Main Street, and Main Street veins out into, over here. That's Southborough, and this is Widefield, and this is Security, Colorado, and And that's how I felt when I went to Boulder, and the buildings weren't intimidating, and the landscape was absolutely immaculate. And I thought, a whole city like this, a whole town like this, and then you get to the campus and you're overwhelmed at first.
Mm-hmm.
But then there was this sense of security, like, I I can do this. So I came in a summer program,
Mm-hmm.
got to my room and walked in. And I was like shaking. And then my roommate came, and her name was Tammy. And Tammy was from Denver. And she was a little rough around the edges, but smart. Oh my God, Tammy was so smart. And she thought I was the smartest thing. And we were just like, that's why we're roommates, you know. But at the same time, we were so different. And that's where I learned to embrace the differences of my people, that folks that looked like me,
Mm-hmm.
but they weren't like me. And she learned to embrace the suburb girl, and I learned to embrace the city girl, and we became the best of best friends. And she did my eyebrows and my hair,
Oh.
and I kind of cleaned up her language. And her sense of style, and her just her whole, things that she hadn't tried before, but I had done,
Mm-hmm.
and we would talk for hours. We would talk for hours about upbringing, and the have and the have nots, and the wills and the won'ts, and the things that she saw that I couldn't imagine, and the things that I had that she couldn't imagine. And so I was different. I was upper middle class.
Mm-hmm.
My mother had a job. And her mother didn't.
Mm. We really do. It's funny. People always think of us as a monolith, but no, we are not.
No, we're not.
We're not even close to that.
No.
You know, now you came in through the EOP program, and and Bill Pitts and all
Yes.
Jones and Ray Bond, all those wonderful
Yes.
people.
Yes.
What was that like? How did that help you with the transition, or was there really a transition? Because a lot of it wasn't really foreign to you.
It was, and it wasn't foreign to me, Michael.
Hmm.
Because Michael, see, I'm going Michael Brody. Okay, so see, I'm just like James Brody. I'm just like, you're Michael Brody, and we have Michael Bryant. So I'm just like, So
Hmm.
there's my flashback right there. Okay, but because I was like, James Michael, yes, James Michael. So anyway, being in the program and stuff was actually, being a nervous 17-year-old.
Hmm.
Um, it was something that, I found, very refreshing,
Hmm.
in that here I was in this big old, I mean, I graduated from a big high school. We had the largest graduating class in 1976.
Hmm.
But so now going to a larger institution, so that to be able to now go into a smaller community, which was perfect for me because that's where I came from.
Hmm.
Okay, Security, Colorado wasn't that big.
Hmm.
But the diversity, and now I was like, okay, this is going to be something else. And it prepared us as Black students, as Latino students, Mexican students back then, Mexican Americans, and Asian students. It prepared us for a world that those other students, if you will,
Hmm.
a lot of them, we saw them in September. We didn't see them after December.
Hmm.
They couldn't handle it, but we stayed the course. So the you take your we had the our basic classes, reading, writing, arithmetic, kind of refresher courses that you do in your freshman year. Gave us a jump start on that. So we had pass fail classes. We experienced all of the elements of what the university life looks like. The big, huge stadium classrooms. You're now responsible for waking yourself up. It gave us a bridge into adulting. Ugh, it sure did. Yeah, it gave us a bridge into adulting that prepared us for a world that would forever shape and change our lives. So we had pass fail classes, we had arena classes, we had classes that were on this side of campus, and then we had to make it to the other side of campus, and we had labs, and then the football players came on campus, and we could go and watch them. We could go into the stadium, and we were just like, whoa, those little bleacher things we had in high school were nothing compared to the big, and so it was good for us. It was good for me because I realized I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready, but I also forged some friendships that a call later, and I'm sitting in front of my friend saying, hello, friend. Hello, my forever friend. It's been a long time, but we can just pick up where
And
we left
years,
off.
and the years don't matter, you
No,
know?
no.
It's that's been one of the, for me, a blessing is that there are people I hadn't seen in 30 or 40 years.
Oh,
And it's
absolutely.
like we just saw each other a week ago and
Yeah,
we haven't missed anything. And I'm always amazed at that,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I went to see Boulder from 1970, summer of 1977 until May of 1980,
Mm,
until May of 1980, and here we are in
yeah,
2025,
yeah,
and I am in awe of God.
man. It's amazing where you get put, and
Yeah,
you
yeah,
don't we don't think about it. It's just, and
yeah,
looking back, you're like, oh, okay, that's why
yeah,
that happened. And
yeah.
now, what were you studying when you were at Boulder?
I was studying I did a major minor.
Hmm.
I did child psychology was my major, and
Hmm.
communications was my minor.
Okay. What did
Yeah.
you think you were going to do? I mean, what was when you got there, said, this is what I'm going to do when I graduate. This is the job. This is the life. This is the career. What were you thinking you were going to
I went into child psychology because I wanted to do child psychology because I had also I was growing up around with my Colorado Springs folks and stuff,
do?
young people that had been so traumatized,
Mm-hmm.
with the death of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and the beloved JFK and
Mm-hmm.
then his brother. Those when assassinations were just like, wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they were done at close range made it personal.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were traumatized by that. That someone that you considered your friend or that you were just minding your own business and they could just walk up and kill you, or they could stand in a warehouse and kill you, or you're just riding in a parade and someone could kill you. And you just kind of go, well, wait a minute, that's personal. And we were smart enough, wise enough to know that person on person crimes were traumatic
Yeah.
for us. And so, as young people, as a young person, I wanted to be the change. I wanted to be the driving force that made a difference in how we viewed the world and how in I once saw a quote that said it's easier to fix a broken child than it is a broken adult.
Mhm.
And without even knowing that back then, I was trying to fix the broken child
Yeah.
so that we could be the productive adults.
Man.
And in 2025, at 66 years old, we still have so many broken adults, and they're hard to fix. They're hard to fix. And I'm not sure that they ever
I know.
will, will be.
Yeah.
And it's
Uh,
emotional for me because that's why I chose child psychology. And I one of my practicums was at a daycare center
mhm.
called Flock for Love of Children,
Mm,
FLOK, oh
mm,
FLOC, and I did my did my practicum there, and just to see the little Black children, because a lot of them were children of professors and students of CU Boulder, and some of the surrounding community as well. But even in its lack of diversity, there was still Black families there that they might have been the janitorial staff at CU, or they
mhm,
might have been at McDonald's or at the bank or at the grocery stores, because we were a whole community.
mhm,
Boulder, Colorado is a city,
mhm,
and just like any other city, but it sits so segregated in that mountainous,
mhm,
flatland-ish type, scenery and stuff, but it's still very, very secluded, if you will.
mhm.
Um, but when I would go to work and I would walk in, and there wasn't but about, I want to say there might have been in the whole daycare center, there might have been four, maybe five little Black children, but their faces lit up when they saw me. And I loved that for them. I loved it for me. And so, yeah, and communications, because I thought maybe one day I'd be a radio personality,
I can see that. I can
you
definitely
know?
see that.
I wanted to be out there, I wanted to hello America, how you doing? Um, and good morning. This is Diana. What's up? How can we make a difference? What are we doing today? And just being that voice that I've often been told that I have a voice that soothes and comforts, and my demeanor and my presence is very welcoming and very comforting, and I hear all kinds of things. And so yeah, so communication, being able to again speak, um, the hurt, the joys, the pain, the excitement, the good news, spread the good news, um, as well as being able to comfort those who weren't. I wanted. That's why communications. That's why child psychology.
Hmm. Talk about your last day in Boulder. What was it like?
It was sad for me to have to leave. Um, I ended up, um, my last day in CU Boulder was not really something that I wanted or that I even foresaw. I knew that I was going to get my degree there, and I was doing very well. And it was actually the end of my junior year, but I had gotten into being what they called a golden girl. So
Hmm.
I was a golden girl. And unfortunately, It was a really strange organization, if you will. And what we did as Golden Girls is when we had prospective athletes. I just thought about that. Okay, thank you very much, James Michael.
My bad. My
Oh,
bad.
okay, well, let me go there. All right. So, wisdom, wisdom. All right. So, as Golden Girls,
Mhm.
we would meet on Saturday morning, and we had prospective athletes. And that was you. Did you know that CU Boulder had a golf team?
Mhm.
Okay. So it was the athlete, literally, it was the athletes, the baseball team, the golfer, if golf, football, basketball, okay?
Mhm.
All of these young men that they had recruited within a 7 state radius, however
Mhm.
far, radius and stuff that they had recruited to CU Boulder. Um, they chose the pretty girls,
Mhm.
if you will,
Mhm.
and the smart girls. I was a smart girl, so they say.
Yes, you were.
And so yeah, and so I was they the top in their class and blah blah blah. And so we would meet with them after they had met with their respective departments and stuff,
Mhm.
and then we would go and we would have events. So we would be like, and what are the good things about CU Boulder? There were no men on this team, by
Mhm.
the way. Okay, all girls.
Mhm.
And so, and we would tour campus with them. And over here is the science center, and over here is, and over here is, and these are the dorms, and these are the athletes' dorms, and this is the parking, and this is the parking lot, and this is the bottle, and this is the. And then we would go to lunch with them. And we always went down to the Hilton or, to
Ooh,
some fancy restaurant and stuff like that. We went to Hilltop. We went to the
ooh,
Hilltop a
good
lot.
place. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Uh-huh. And then that night, um, then they would go off and get back to their hotels and or wherever they were going, and 10 to 1 like the football players would stay in the football dorm and that
Mhm.
type of thing. So wherever those departments had their folks, that's where the guys went. And then that night, then we would go by and pick them up, and there was always a party on campus, or we would take them to the local clubs and stuff like that and hang out with them.
Mhm. Hmm.
Hmm.
Could I ask what that was like?
Um, like we were being pimped?
I didn't say, but did it feel like that?
At first, no. We really did think that we were doing a good thing because we
Mhm.
loved our school.
Yeah.
We loved CU Boulder. We didn't have a lot of the issues that
Mhm.
we see today.
Mhm.
Back the 70s were different, the 80s were
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
And so was it just, the churning of something that was yet to come? Of course it was.
Yeah.
But we didn't see that at first. And
Mhm.
then after that, it was like, hey, hold it. Hey, hold up. Uh, did you? I did, yeah, you know and so then it was like, well, show these guys, and there were also white females on this
Mhm.
squad of Golden Girls as well and
Mhm.
stuff. And the irony of that is that the brothers had respect for us. Okay, they would be like eyeballing us and stuff like that, and we danced with them a lot,
Mhm.
but they were pretty respectful of us. You got the comments or the grab every once in a while and stuff like that, but you just kind of go, "Are you serious?" And they'd be like, "I'm sorry." I'm just like, "I know your mama know you." And
Mhm.
but for the most part and stuff like that, they were cool. But the white girls, were like they were asked to, maybe go the extra mile.
Mm.
So they say, or they just did.
Or they just did.
Or they just did, to ensure that that young man, was going to come. And some of them were, the young black men and stuff, of course, because those were who the recruits were and stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, but this, anyway, one particular time, we were, and generally, recruiting, of course, was always in the springtime and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
we went horseback riding.
Mm-hmm.
And they told us that we were going to be taking the guys, around to the mall, and we are going to go here and there. And so I wore different shoes because I ride horses. So I know
Mm-hmm.
how, I had to put on my boots and stuff
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
put on the proper footwear. And
Mm-hmm.
so then we went horseback riding. And at the time, they were not only recruiting the fellas, they were recruiting coaches for the team as well.
Mm.
And so we had one of the black coaches that they were recruiting, um, and his wife. And so anyway, so I guess she didn't want to go shopping. I don't know what happened. Anyway, we ended up going horseback riding. I had on the wrong shoes, and I had my particular horse that I liked when we went, because again, we did this often. And I had on the wrong shoes, had a different horse, and my foot slipped out of the stirrup, and I pulled back on the reins, and my horse stopped. It took off running,
Mm-hmm.
and I got it under control. Pulled back on the reins. My foot slipped out. Pulled back on the reins, and then my foot slipped out of my stirrup, and I went over the top of the horse, and I landed on a rock
Mm.
in the ground, and I got a contusion in my hip.
Oh my
So I
goodness.
landed on my side and stuff, turned my body and landed on my side and stuff, and ended up with a contusion in my hip. And I was on crutches for 8 weeks.
Oh my.
And so my last semester at CU Boulder, unfortunately, was my spring semester in 1980, and I ended up taking. Was able to talk a couple of professors into, because I was doing so well in the
Mm-hmm.
in the course and stuff. But of course, and I lived off campus.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't have motorized scooters and
Right.
all that kind of stuff. And so I couldn't, it was hard for me to get back and forth and get to campus, number one, and then
Mm-hmm.
around to my classes and stuff. So I tried to do as much work as home. And when I got to campus, I'd go to my professors and say, hey, look, this is what happened. I'm doing this for 8 weeks. I can't.
Yeah.
And they were just like, okay, okay, okay. Come the end of the semester, near the end of the semester, I ended up taking like IPs, um, IFs,
Mm-hmm.
and I did get a couple of grades and stuff,
Yeah.
but I was just not going to be able to complete the semester. And um, I had also met a young man that ended up being the father of my firstborn child, but I ended up not going back. And so my beautiful GPA and record there at CU Boulder, after a while, it just didn't work. And I had a baby.
Mm.
I had a baby. My first child was born September of 1981, and I left in June of 1980. And so, I didn't end up going back that fall, and I thought maybe I'll go back in the spring, and that didn't happen because, again, here we go.
So what happens next? Now you're a mom and you're raising a child
I
and you're trying to
am
figure out what to do and
right. I am a mom. I am a single mom. I'm working. I meet, I ended up going to trade school. Emily Griffith, was a trade school in,
hmm
in Denver. I ended up staying in Denver. Um, and I went to Emily Griffith, where I met my second child's father. And unfortunately, again, things didn't work out. I'm a single mother now. I have two kids, but I did graduate. Well, certificate. Did get a certificate of
Mm-hmm.
completion from
Mm-hmm.
there in electronics, and so yeah, so I really enjoyed that. But again, just joining the workforce and working and doing my thing and just making it, getting my hustle on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so my girls matriculated through and all the way to, let me see, Delia had gone started going to George.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, she went to George
Mm-hmm.
Washington,
Mm-hmm.
and she went to Harrison, and then she went to Gove Middle School, and
Mm-hmm.
then she matriculated on to uh, George.
Okay.
And I became, I, worked my way up in the ranks and educated myself. And I was a stockbroker,
Oh.
in customer service for
Mm-hmm.
Janus Group of Mutual Funds. So I did well. I did
Mm-hmm.
well. And then my mother moved from uh, in the AME church. They get moved. They can move every year, but she had done 7 years in Salt Lake, and then she
Mm-hmm.
was going to Kansas City, Missouri, and
Mm-hmm.
so I then moved on to Kansas City, Missouri, with my company with Janice, and I moved my family from Colorado, from Denver, down to Kansas City, Missouri,
Mm-hmm.
and from there I was my mother's minister of music,
Mm.
and until the Lord spoke to me and said, you. And I was like, mm-mm, not me. He said, you. And I was like, oh Lord. And I went back to finish my degree at Park University. So I went to Park University. It was Park College then.
Mm-hmm.
But by the
Mm-hmm.
time I graduated, it was Park University, where I graduated with cum laude with a 3.67 GPA. Um, and working full time and raising two kids. Went to school at night, and then I started pastoring, and 14 years after pastoring. I was my mother's minister of music, and then went from there to pastoring. Went from Kansas City, uh, Missouri, to St. Louis. Um, Actually, before I went to St. Louis, I finished my degree, my undergrad degree,
Mm-hmm.
and thought it not robbery to um, get a master's of divinity degree from Southern Methodist University Perkins School of Theology.
Mm-hmm.
And I was ministering and helping in the AME churches and stuff down there.
Mm-hmm.
Had the honor and privilege and praise God to serve under Michael, the Reverend Doctor Michael Waters.
Mm.
Williams Waters, Michael J.
Mm.
Yeah, that's my Michael. I served with him in his church because I was already ordained, and he was still matriculating through the African Methodist Episcopal Church. So I would go to church with him, and I would consecrate his elements on first
Mm.
Sunday so he could serve. We would serve together and stuff. So I didn't stop pastoring. I didn't stop ministry just because I was in Dallas. And then I came back and did St. Louis, and I did my two churches there. And then from there, I went to my mother was then diagnosed in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
My mother was diagnosed with brain and lung cancer, and my father had congestive heart failure. So my father died in May of 2009, and 16 months later, and then or let me stop. My father died in May of 2009. In 2000 and in September of 2009,
Mm-hmm.
I retired, withdrew from the AME church, and then my mother in 2000 May. March, end of March of 2010, my mother was diagnosed with brain and lung cancer. And I went and took care of her the 6 months that God gave us together. And I was in the room with her when she took her last breath. And from there, I, um, I did kind of a gypsy thing. I lived in Madison, Wisconsin. I lived in Panama City, Lynn Haven, Florida. I lived a couple years in Raleigh, North Carolina, and then thought I was going to settle back in Dallas, where I just worked, and I was customer, and then I just did customer service. I didn't go back into ministry, um, pulpit ministry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and let me just straighten that out. I just didn't go back into pulpit ministry,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I continue to do ministry every single day.
Yeah.
And so and then 2021, June 21, I was at a, or I'm sorry, in March of 2021, I was at a job that I just didn't have the morals for. My integrity was questioned every day. It was a very high loan, very high interest rate loan company, payday loan kind of company, and I just couldn't do it anymore, and I walked away. In June of 2021, I retired at 60. Well, I wasn't quite 63 yet. I was getting ready to be 63. So 62 and a few more months till my 63rd birthday. And here I am, retired at really, really, really retired, and living my best life. At 66 years old, I live in a senior high rise. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
senior community.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really do enjoy it. But Lord is doing a new thing with me in 2025, and I'm finding my place back in, because I did stray. I strayed from a lot of things. The death of my mother really had me questioning um, my faith.
Mm-hmm.
I knew a lot of ugly, mean, terrible people that I thought should have been gone way before my mother, who was my best friend. Was she perfect? No. Am I? No. But she was my best friend
Yeah.
and the love of my life.
But
And
I'm not
it's,
perfect, but I'm perfect for you.
yes, I'm perfectly imperfect.
Yeah.
And her death took a toll on me faith wise. Um, and I felt like I fell off the face of the earth, and I ceased to exist. And because it was without her.
Yeah.
Uh, and I wasn't, and it was funny because when she died, and we had her repast, or not a repast, but we had her viewing, and several of my clergy, she passed here in Kansas City, Missouri. And several of my clergy brothers and sisters from the Kansas City, Missouri area showed up, came to her viewing, and I was at one point in time I was just sobbing. And one of my clergy brothers, "What's wrong, Pastor? You a pastor? What? Why are you crying like that?" And I very abruptly um, told him, "I am not a pastor. I am a grieving orphan. I am not Reverend Diana Durdin. I'm that little girl who just lost her mother, her mommy." And I wrote, I've started writing, and I've got to finish. I've got to finish
Mm,
this book. Um, but it's the title of the book. It's okay for them to see you cry.
mm,
And the preface and then under that it says, the stupid things we say to grieving people, grieving, whether they be congregants or your family or your friends or anybody, and it's, oh, they're in a better place. How stupid is that? I want to hear that,
mm.
you know, and it's not even really stupid. It's just insensitive. You just kind of go, I'm sorry, what did you? This is not a time for you to bring in the woo woo woo, the
Yeah.
Sinclair woo woo woo.
Yep.
Because and but you don't know. If you don't know what to say,
Mhm.
I just needed folks to just sit in
And
my
say
presence
and
and
say nothing. And
let
say
me
nothing.
be. Just
Yeah.
let me be. Your presence, they don't understand. When they showed up, I was just like, when my mother's funeral day came, and they walked us back to, this was a church that she had built, Willis Chapel AME Church,
Mm,
that my mother built. There, the old Willis Chapel's right across the parking lot, historical landmark. And then there's Willis Chapel, the big new building and stuff. And so there's a chapel, and I walked back in the family, and I walked back into this chapel area in preparation for for us to be guided in, to be walked in, and kind of get ourselves together. And they opened the door, and I was the first one in, and my knees buckled. It was jam packed with clergy folks from everywhere
mm,
in the Fifth Episcopal District,
mm.
St. Louis and Arizona and California and Utah and Nevada and Colorado. And I buckled. My
Wow.
knees buckled. They had to hold me and put me in a chair. And nobody said a word, but their presence is what I needed.
Yeah.
That wasn't for her. That was for me. That was for my family.
Mhm.
But as one that was in the ministry, that was for me.
Yeah.
And so, all that to say, um, so I've, and about, and this is again transparent truth. Um, I was, it was probably around, I was about 64 and a half,
Mhm.
and I started realizing that there was still something missing in the ministry. And one day I passed a mirror, and it was me.
Mm.
I was missing from my own ministry. I was telling folks, because I'm going to tell you the good news. I'm going to tell you about Jesus now.
Mhm.
You know, I'm going to lift you up. I'm going to encourage you.
But
Forgot to encourage my soul and let me journey on. Mm, my night was dark for too long. And so I pulled back curtains and I let in the light again. And my soul cried, hallelujah. Mm, mm. And I found that peace that I was giving away. I found that in me again.
mm,
And I learned and I found the balance between life and death. I found the joy, the difference and the balance between joy and pain. I found the refuge and the restoration of a God who had never left me nor forsaken me and waited for me to come home, waited for me to welcome him back full time, not just for this time or that time, but for this moment, this time. And it made the difference in who I am sitting here today. It took me a while to come back to that. And it's okay. When a friend of mine's mother died, he said, weeping may endure for a night, but joy will come in the morning. And then he said, but don't you ever let someone dictate how long your night is.
Mm.
My night was a long time, but I walk in the light of God now. The curtains are pulled back. In fact, I just ripped them down. And I wake up in the morning and that joy that I had is returned. That
You know,
peace that I have is returned. And just like Job, it is multiplied.
mm,
God has restored the years that the locust ate. And I have a new song, and I have a new walk, and I have a new look, and I have a new. I don't have to explain my tears anymore. I will not,
mhm,
unapologetically, I will no longer explain why I do something and don't put me on a time clock because I may or may not show up
mm.
unapologetically because my time, my movements are God's placement of my feet. My steps are reordered by God.
You
My
know,
life is,
you know, it's often difficult to explain, but I think you've probably been one of the best explanations I've heard of what spirit really feels like. And it's a personal journey.
it
You
is.
know, you can share it, but what you're really saying is that for, at risk of being corny, you found God in yourself, which He
Absolutely.
always was.
Absolutely.
And so many of us keep looking for things, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what you believe in. You be looking for that, whatever that thing is, in other places when you were all you ever really needed,
Mhm,
because you had all you ever needed.
mhm,
And you know, I hear you. I feel it today.
mhm,
There's so many journeys that we have that we don't realize who we really are.
mhm,
And however you describe it, that's not even the point. It's how it works for you, how it fits for you, how it makes you be the person that you were always meant to be.
mhm.
And I'm probably way off. I don't know. I'm just rambling, I guess. But
No, no, you're right there. You're right there. Because in that gypsy journey, if you will, um, before, during, and after my mother passed, um, I was engaged, and he died.
Mm.
So I've never been married. My children have grown to amazing young women, and we we don't have a relationship. Um, I have had plenty, and I've lost it all, and I have regained new, and I'm very comfortable with that.
Mm.
I have cried more tears than the Nile could contain. But I have also smiled, oh my goodness, and laughed. That laughter has erased the years of tears. That joy has returned. And I'm just like, wait, when was that? Oh, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah, that was yesterday, but that was then. Um, a lot of things have happened, but they don't deserve the voice that the enemy would like me to give it. Oh, no, no, you know. I will say, um, one of my awakening moments was, I've always had hair, and couple years ago, it's been a couple years now, but not quite two, but
Mhm.
my hair was down to my behind, and it was absolutely amazing. And people would stop me and go, "Is that your hair?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." But it started thinning right through here. And then I'd have to pull up the sides to, hide the thin and
Mhm.
camouflage the thin. And then one day I thought, okay, well, and I had asked for help because I needed help then. I'm like, hair's down to my butt. I might only be 5 feet tall, but hair down to your backside, in
That's
this
a lot of hair.
beautiful, that's a lot of hair. And I couldn't get anybody to help me with it. And they were charging me $1 million at the beauty shops and stuff like that. And so I thought, you know what? And then I cut it, and then I cut it some more. And then one day, my daughter's husband came over, my oldest daughter's husband came over, and I said, "Hey, I need I called him out, I need your help." And he came over and he cut it all off. And I saw this face and I
Mm.
went, "Oh, what have I been hiding? I've been hiding this," because people didn't say, "Oh, look at that face." They said, "Whoa, look at that hair."
Mm.
And that's all they saw.
Mm.
And now when you see me, you really have to see me.
Absolutely.
You really have
Yes.
to see me because that's all
Yes.
I got.
Oh.
And I fell in love. I never considered myself attractive at all. At all.
Mm.
I never considered myself. And to one of those ancestral cut the curse things. My mother always said that I would be pretty if I lost 20 pounds, and then it went to 30 pounds, and then it went to 40 pounds, and then it went to 50 pounds. So I was never thin enough. I was never, so I was never going to be pretty enough. And so I never considered myself attractive. I didn't, and you notice the word attractive. I wouldn't even dare say pretty, but I wasn't even attractive. And so, yeah, so that led to a different avenue of promiscuity and that type of thing back then. I don't live there anymore though, but burned down that house, in fact. um, but and then I said, hey. And then that day when all my hair was gone and I looked at the face, And I went, you are absolutely beautiful. And I felt the words come out of my mouth and went, can I say that? And I went, girl, you sure can.
Yes, 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 yes. Yes,
And
yes,
and
yes.
and it was one of those things that when I walk into her, I just most of the time, honestly, I don't even remember sometimes I don't have hair, you know? And I walk into the room and people look like, and I'm thinking, I know this outfit is gorgeous, or I know my sweater is beautiful, isn't it? And I'm just like, girl, they looking upside your bald head. And then I went, no, they're seeing my beautiful face.
Mm.
Because I walk in and I command attention and I have confidence and and then I went, no, it ain't even all that. Girl, let your light so shine before others that they may see his good works. I know it says your good works, but I changed it and said his good works. They see the Jesus in me now. And that's what I want them to see. And it's not camouflage with a bunch of hair and fancy clothes and all that stuff. It's just me and him in me. So how about that?
You know, I almost think I know how you're gonna answer this last question.
Go ahead and ask it anyway.
You're in a room, and across the table from you is 17-year-old
Mm.
Diana Durdin. What are you saying to her?
Diana, I love you, all of you. You are not going to be perfect. And imperfection is a blessing, not a curse. I see your greatness. And one day down the road, I want you to look in the mirror, stay there until you too see it as well. It will be worth the journey because you are amazing. You are awesome. You are deserving of love, of life, of laughter, of peace, of just celebrating being you. Don't hide from being you. Don't change because the crowd changed. Know that God will either remove you from it or remove them from you. You're going to be all right. You're going to be all right. I love you. unconditionally.